Hello and welcome to my 200 sub special. It really took me a while to think of this what if, but eventually, when I saw Pickled Dill's video and I just thought for a while, it just came to me and I knew that I need to come up with this video. It's like a really obvious title. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have thought of something like this, but not specifically Ash being his son. So, yeah, let's just dive into it. So, growing up, Ash would always be in his father's shadow. Ash would be known as the son of the guy who stayed Kanto's undefeated champion for 15 years straight. Actually, no, not 15 years straight. For 25 years straight. In this timeline, because Ash did not want to look like an absolute failure to his father's legacy, he would go to bed early and wake up early so he can go and retrieve his starter Pokemon and make himself and his father's legacy look good. But when Ash got to to the lab before everybody else, he would see Red, his father, talking to Professor Oak. So basically the backstory behind this is a few years, 8 or 10 years after Red first won the Indigo League, he met Delia. She became his wife. They married. Then they had Ash. But Red was there for most of Ash's early life. But when Ash was 6 or 5, he didn't take off. He just went and began to fulfill his champion duties because he couldn't hold them back anymore. So then, when Ash saw his father and Professor Oak talking, he could barely contain his excitement. But he was more intrigued to hear what they were talking about. So he'd hear Red finishing a sentence saying, "I think it's time to give him this one," which would confuse Ash, as then Oak and Red would turn and they would see Ash standing right there and they'd say, "Oh, Ash, hello. Here for your starter Pokemon?" And Ash would say, "Yes, Dad, I want the Pokemon now, please." And then Professor Oak would say, "Even though usually you would receive it from me, I don't think that you're going to be receiving anybody's starter Pokemon from me. You're going to be receiving it directly from your dad." As then, father and son would get close and would begin talking. And then Red would say, "Ash, remember what I said to you the day I left to continue my journey as a trainer, when I went to train in Mount Silver and defend my champion title. I said that I'm not going to privilege you or give you any boosts to become a great trainer like most people would think I would. I'm going to let you climb up the mountain to greatness yourself like I did. But I've decided that I'm going to give you something that will help you climb up to the mountain of greatness. A Pokemon. A Pokemon that was the child of my Charizard and a Dragonite. This was quite rare as my Charizard was a male, the Dragonite was a female. But the child ended up coming out a bit different than usual. As then, he would hand Ash a Pokeball. And when Ash threw out the Pokeball, there would stand a purple Charmander with a bluish purplish flame on its tail. As then Ash would say, "Oh my god, that Charmander looks so cool. I've never seen any Charmander that looks like that." And Red would say, wow, I bred this Charmander with my Charizard, my strongest Pokemon, the Pokemon that I received from Oak himself, and it is also the child of a Dragonite that I caught a few years ago. And then Red would step back and would say, Ash, I'm gonna go visit your mother for a bit. So now I think it's time for you to start on your journey. Goodbye. And then he would leave. Ash would get his Pokedex and Pokeballs from Oak, but then leave on this journey. He would encounter a Pidgey and he would use Charmander. Charmander would dominate the Pidgey with flamethrowers and scratches, and then Charmander would land a flamethrower on the Pidgey's feather, which would burn the Pidgey as it would be burning, and then Charmander would turn around to Ash and they would begin celebrating that something had happened, not noticing that the Pidgey had finally got his chance to get away. When Charmander turned around to continue battling, the Pidgey was gone, out of their sight. But in the distance, they spotted another bird Pokemon, simply there grazing and eating grass. Ash would command his Charmander to use a flamethrower on this Spearow. Spearow would not take kindly to this and would come in for Fury attack. But Charmander would easily avoid the attacks and would smash it down with a scratch attack, as then Ash would throw a Pokeball, catching the Spearow. After that, he would go to Viridian City. After exploring it for a bit, he would decide to go to Viridian Forest. Ash would be scouring the area, trying to look for any Pokemon to catch, until a Pikachu would pop out of nowhere. Ash would immediately use his Charmander to battle it. Charmander would use Flamethrower, which would do decent damage as Pikachu would respond with Thunder Shock. Pikachu would then come for a Quick Attack, which would do decent damage, as then Charmander would respond with a Scratch, which would do decent damage back. You would then see Pikachu trying to charge up an extra powerful Thunder Shock to finish off Charmander. Taking this opportunity, he would use Flamethrower, which would subdue Pikachu long enough for Ash to throw a Pokeball, catching the yellow mouse Pokemon. After that, meanwhile Ash was exploring the Viridian Forest, Samurai would run up to him and say, Hey Ash Ketchum, you are the son of Red Ketchum, Kanto's undefeated champion, and you seem to be from the town of Pallet. I want to battle you right now. As then, Ash would use Pikachu as Samurai would use Metapod. And this would go as well as you think it would go. All Metapods would know how to do is just use Harden and Harden and Harden and Harden. As then, Pikachu would fry it with just a few Thunder Shocks. After that, Samurai would send out Pinsir. Pikachu would try use Thunder Shocks and Quick Attacks to get up some decent damage, but would do minimal damage to the colossal bug type, as then Pinsir would grab Pikachu with its massive claws or jaws, whatever they are, and would crush Pikachu. It wouldn't kill Pikachu, but it would really hurt it and would instantly knock it out. Ash would then return Pikachu and would then send out Spearow. Spearow would use Peck, a lot of pecks on Pinsir's body, which would do a lot of damage. Instead, when Pinsir came in for a Vice Grip, learning from his previous mistake, Ash would fly above the move and would then finish Pinsir off from behind with a powerful peck, knocking it out. Ash would praise Spearow, as then Sarah would say, Wow, you really are. your father's son. And Pilot Town really does produce great trainers. Anyway, I hope to see you again, as then Samurai would leave. After that, Ash would quickly make his way into Pewter City. He would then make his way into Pewter City Gym, where he would challenge Brock to a gym battle. But Brock would recognize him as Ash Ketchum, Red Ketchum's son, and would then say, "Oh, Ash Ketchum, what a surprise. Since you're Red's son, I'm not gonna hold back on you. I want this battle to be a one-on-one, both of our strongest Pokemon, not holding anything back." I should be taken aback by this, but I would then say, "Oh, okay, let's go." I should use Charmander, as Brock would use Onyx. Onyx would easily overwhelm Charmander with a few rock slides and earthquakes, but Charmander will keep persevering, keep using embers and flamethrowers and scratches to try even the playing field. But in the end, the type advantage on Onyx's corner would be too much for Charmander to even overcome, which would eventually get Charmander knocked out by an earthquake. Brock would then say, "Wow, you're quite impressive, but if you want to beat me, you need to train your Pokemon more." And then Ash would leave, and she would then see a man who looked similar to Brock standing right out of the entrance of the gym, as he would then say, "So you challenged Brock, huh? From what I saw right there, the Charmander is probably your strongest Pokemon. But let me see your others." As then Ash would reveal his others, he would then say, "These Pokemon have potential to beat Brock. They could learn moves that could potentially beat him, but I think we're going to have to do some training first. If you want to beat Brock, you shouldn't fight with strength, but with strategy, and you should always look for type matchups." As then, Flint would use his Geodude to train Ash's Pokemon. After a few days, all the Pokemon would surge in strength as Geodude would begin to grow attached to Ash's band of Pokemon. Eventually, Ash's Charmander, surprisingly, learnt Dragon Pulse, which wasn't a move that a Charmander could actually learn. And usually, after a Charmander trained like this for a little bit, it would learn Metal Claw. But this one learned Dragon Pulse instead, which would intrigue Flint and Ash both, especially Flint as he was more experienced with Pokemon. As then, when Ash had finished training, he would be leaving to go and heal his Pokemon and challenge Brock, but he would notice that Geodude was following him. He would then turn, he would say, "Hey Geodude, why are you following me?" And then Flint would say, "You see, I only caught Geodude quite recently. It isn't actually attached to me. It's actually quite a new Pokemon of mine. So, I think it wants to join your team because it's gotten quite attached to you and your Pokemon." And I would say, "Oh, that's fine with me. Geodude, do you want to join my team?" As the rock Pokemon would nod, and Flint would pass Ash the Pokeball as he would return Geodude. After that, Ash would go to Brock's gym, as he would then say, "Brock, I'm here to beat you." And then Brock would say, "I hope now that you've surged in strength and can show me if you're really your father's son, because I've been looking forward to battling you, Red's son, ever since my father told me back when he used to care about his family, about how he battled the great Red Ketchum, which was a battle for the ages. and also taught Red many things. As then Ash would use Charmander, as Brock would use Onyx. Brock would scoff at this and would say, "You're really still using Charmander? Well, I guess it is your strongest Pokemon, so you don't really have a choice." Ash would then command for a Flamethrower, which would do a lot more damage than it did last time, which would surprise Brock. Brock would then command for a Rock Slide, which would do decent damage, as then Charmander would come in and slash with a Scratch, which would do a bit of damage, but still a lot more noticeable than last time. Onyx would respond with an Earthquake, which would do a lot of damage to Charmander, but Charmander would still stand up, ready to fight, not ready to give up. Charmander would then use an Ember, which would burn Onyx a bit. This would go on for a long time, as both Pokemon were even, but then Onyx would decide that it had had enough and would decide to go full power of an Earthquake, as Brock had the same feeling and would call for full power Earthquake, not holding anything back, as as Onyx would go to town on the entire gym, as the gym would begin shaking, as debris would begin falling from the rooftops. After the dust was settled, Charmander would stand up, as then a purplish and fireish aura would appear around it, as then its eyes would glow, a fiery purplish aura, as a fiery purplish aura would appear around it. As then, when Ash called for a Flamethrower, it did a lot more damage, and it put Onyx in a burning state, which would shock Ash. Ash would then command for a Dragon Pulse, which would absolutely decimate Onyx's health, as then Onyx would barely be standing, but Onyx would push through and would use an Earthquake. This would also leave Charmander barely standing, but then Charmander would begin to glow, as it would grow in size and a massive bone would grow in its head. And then, when the evolution was finished, there stood a reddish or yellowish Charmeleon with a blue fiery tail and still entrapped in that fiery purplish aura. After Charmeleon finished its evolution, with terrifying speed, it would charge through with a new move it had learned, Dragon Claw, which would absolutely slash and break Onyx, knocking out the Rock Snake. This entire battle would shock and impress both Ash and Brock. Ash would hug his Charmeleon and would say, "Well done, Charmeleon." So Charmeleon would flamethrower him in the face with affection and roar, "Charmeleon!" As then, Brock would then come towards Ash and would give him the badge and would say, "This was the most impressive battle I have had yet. Thank you very much." As then, Brock and Ash would leave, deciding to have a little conversation. But then, Flint would be standing there. As then Flint would be like, "Brock, I'm sorry for not being there through most of the years where you were growing up and turning into a teenager. I'm sorry about that." This would confuse Ash, as then he would connect the dots. I would say, "Wait, you're Brock's dad?" As then Flint would say, "Yes, I am." And then Ash would say, "I knew there was something between you. You two look so similar." As then Brock would coldly stare at his father and would ask, "What do you want?" As then Flint would say, "Look, Brock, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for running off on a hopeless crusade of becoming a powerful Pokemon trainer and leaving you here alone. I'm really sorry about that. So I've just come here to say, go follow your dreams. I'll look after the kids now. It's all right, Brock." As then Brock would say, "Okay, but remember to do this and that to look after the kids." As then Brock and Ash would leave. on a new adventure, as then Flint would stand there and he would say, I remember the first time that I met Red and I taught him about Pokemon. That Ash kid really is like his father. He might one day surpass him. As that is where we are going to leave it off now. Sorry that I didn't come up with a 200 sub special sooner. I wanted to, but I didn't have any ideas. But when I saw Pickle Dill's video about what if Red trained Ash or something like that, it just gave me the idea to make this what if. And then I just like felt a surge of confidence and did it after coming up with the ideas for the what if. And I really thank you guys for the support that you've been giving me. I'll see you.